Hawthorne Manor, a grandiose but decaying Gilded Age mansion, stood on a sprawling, overgrown estate, shunned by the nearby affluent community. It had been empty for decades, its once magnificent rooms collecting dust and shadows. When it was bequeathed to a distant relative, Clara Evans, a young art historian struggling to make ends meet, she saw it not as a home, but as a potential gold mine of forgotten antiques and art. Her plan was to catalogue its contents, auction them off, and sell the dilapidated property. The manor was overwhelming in its scale and its state of disrepair. Ornate plasterwork crumbled from ceilings, damask wallpaper peeled in strips, and a pervasive scent of decay and old money hung in the air. Clara, accompanied by her friend and fellow historian James, began the painstaking process of sifting through the remnants of the Hawthorne family's opulent past. In the grand ballroom, amidst shrouded furniture and cobweb-laden chandeliers, they found it, an enormous, exquisitely framed gilded mirror. It was at least 10 feet tall, its frame a riot of carved cherubs, flowers, and swirling acanthus leaves, tarnished but still impressive. The glass itself was remarkably clear, reflecting the decaying ballroom with an almost unsettling clarity. From the moment Clara first looked into it, she felt a strange pull, a sense of depth within the reflection that seemed to go beyond the room itself. James, more pragmatic, was focused on its potential auction value. "This alone could fetch a fortune, Clara," he said, examining the intricate giltwork. As they worked in the ballroom, Clara found herself increasingly distracted by the mirror. Sometimes she'd catch fleeting movements in its reflection, a shadow darting where no shadow should be, a flicker of light in a darkened corner of the reflected room that wasn't there in reality. She'd turn, but there would be nothing. James, too, began to notice oddities. "Did you move that vase?" he asked one afternoon, pointing to a porcelain vase on a nearby mantelpiece that seemed to have shifted slightly from its position in the mirror, its reflection compared to its actual spot. Clara hadn't touched it. The disturbances grew more pronounced. They'd hear faint waltz music, seeming to emanate from the mirror itself, though the ballroom was silent. Whispers, like snippets of polite, yet somehow sinister, party conversation, would drift from its surface. The temperature around the mirror was always noticeably colder. Clara began researching the Hawthorne family. They had been titans of industry in the late 19th century, known for their lavish parties and their equally scandalous private lives. The last Hawthorne to inhabit the manor, a beautiful and enigmatic woman named Seraphina Hawthorne, had died under mysterious circumstances in the early 1900s. Some said it was a tragic accident. Others whispered of suicide or even murder following a rumored illicit affair. Seraphina was known for her vanity and her obsession with her own reflection, spending hours before her prized gilded mirror in the ballroom. One evening, Clara was working late, alone in the ballroom, cataloguing a collection of silverware. The only light came from her battery-powered lantern. She glanced up at the mirror and her heart stopped. Reflected in its depths, standing just behind her own reflection, was a woman. She was tall, elegant, dressed in a flowing, dark Victorian gown. Her face was pale, her features aristocratic, and her eyes, dark and intense, were fixed on Clara's reflection with an unnerving, possessive stare. It was Seraphina Hawthorne. Clara whirled around, gasping. The ballroom behind her was empty. She looked back at the mirror. Seraphina was still there, her lips curving into a faint, knowing smile. Then slowly, her reflection raised a hand and beckoned Clara closer. Terrified, Clara fled the manor, not stopping until she reached her car. She told James what she had seen. He was skeptical but concerned by her genuine terror. They agreed to be more cautious, to always work together in the ballroom. The mirror's influence seemed to grow. Clara became obsessed with it, drawn to its unsettling beauty and the enigma of Seraphina. She found herself staring into it for long periods, feeling a strange connection to the reflected world, to Seraphina herself. James noticed a change in her. She was more withdrawn, her eyes often distant, as if she was listening to something only she could hear. One afternoon, while they were carefully trying to move a heavy marble bust, James tripped. As he fell, his hand brushed against the gilded mirror. For a split second, he felt an icy coldness pass through him, and he saw, not the reflection of the ballroom, but a different scene, a lavish party, people in period attire waltzing, champagne flowing, and in the center Seraphina Hawthorne laughing, her eyes alight with a feverish, almost manic energy. Then the vision was gone, and he was on the floor, shaken, the ballroom around him dusty and silent. "Clara," he said, his voice trembling, "this mirror, it's not just a mirror. It's a window or a trap or something." They decided they needed to remove it from the manor to break its hold. They contacted antique specialists, but none were willing to handle such a large and reputedly cursed item. The situation escalated. Clara started having vivid dreams of being at Seraphina's parties, dancing in the ballroom, dressed in Victorian finery. She'd wake up feeling disoriented, the faint scent of old perfume clinging to her. She began to neglect her work, spending more and more time simply staring into the mirror, sometimes talking to Seraphina's reflection, which now appeared to her more frequently, offering whispered advice, compliments, and subtle manipulations. James grew increasingly alarmed. Clara was losing herself, being drawn into the mirror's world, into Seraphina's influence. He realized Seraphina wasn't just a passive reflection, she was a predatory entity, perhaps trapped within the mirror, seeking a way out, seeking to possess a new life, a new body. He confronted Clara, trying to reason with her, to pull her back from the brink. "Clara, this isn't you. Seraphina is manipulating you. That mirror is dangerous." Clara, her eyes glazed, her voice eerily calm, turned to him. "She understands me, James. She knows what it's like to be admired, to be beautiful. She just wants to share her world." In a desperate attempt to save his friend, James decided he had to destroy the mirror. One night, armed with a heavy crowbar he'd found in the manor's stables, he crept into the ballroom. Clara was there, standing before the mirror, her back to him, humming softly. Her reflection, Seraphina, watched James approach, her expression one of cold fury. As James raised the crowbar, Seraphina's reflection lunged forward, seeming to pass through Clara's reflection. Clara herself stiffened, then slowly turned, her movements jerky, unnatural. When she faced James, her eyes were no longer her own. They were Seraphina's, filled with a chilling, ancient malice. "You will not harm my mirror," she to Seraphina hissed, her voice a strange amalgam of Clara's, and a deeper, older tone. A struggle ensued. James, horrified, tried to fight off Clara, who now possessed an unnatural strength. The room grew icy cold. The faint sound of waltz music filled the air. Shadows danced in the corners of the room. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, James managed to shove Clara, Seraphina, away. He swung the crowbar with all his might at the gilded mirror. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the manor like a gunshot. The mirror exploded into 1,000 pieces, the gilded frame splintering. As the glass broke, a piercing, inhuman shriek ripped through the air, and a blast of icy wind swept through the ballroom, extinguishing James's lantern. Clara collapsed to the floor, unconscious. When she awoke, hours later, James was by her side. The ballroom was a wreck, shattered glass littering the floor. But the oppressive atmosphere was gone. The coldness had lifted. Clara felt herself again, though weak and disoriented, with only fragmented, nightmarish memories of what had happened. They left Hawthorne Manor that day, abandoning their plans to catalogue its contents. The spell was broken. Clara, though deeply shaken, slowly recovered, forever grateful to James for saving her from a fate worse than death. The gilded mirror, or what was left of it, was eventually disposed of, its shards holding no more power. But Clara would never look at her own reflection in the same way again. She would always remember the eyes of Seraphina Hawthorne, the possessive stare from the other side of the glass, a chilling reminder that some reflections show more than just what is there, and some beauty hides a terrifying, predatory emptiness. Hawthorne Manor remained empty, its secrets and its shattered mirror a testament to a vanity that transcended death itself.